Welcome to the channel Shadows in the Night. Before the story begins, I need to make one thing clear. Everything you are about to hear is fictional. But some things, even when fictional, can feel real enough to keep people awake at night, especially if you're listening after dark. I'm not telling this story to scare anyone. I'm telling it because I need to let it out, like a late confession. If you're listening with headphones right now, alone, with nothing but darkness outside your window, please listen all the way through. Don't stop halfway. My name is Minh. The day I left Saigon and returned to my hometown, it rained steadily from morning until late afternoon. Rain in the Mekong Delta doesn't pour, it lingers. Damp and persistent, seeping slowly into your skin, leaving behind the familiar, slightly sour smell of fresh mud. The bus dropped me off at the Hung Hua Bridge just before dusk. In front of me was the Hao River, murky with silt, flowing slowly but heavily. The river's surface rippled in perfect circles, as if something had just sunk beneath it. My grandfather's rice shop sat right at the foot of the bridge. People called it Old Ba's Rice Shop. A low tin roof, chipped wooden tables. During the day it served boatmen and truck drivers. At night, it was almost always empty. The smell of old cooking oil mixed with stove smoke had soaked into every plank of wood, every piece of fabric. My grandfather was sitting at the table closest to the stove, his back slightly hunched, more than half his hair already white. He looked up when he saw me. His eyes were calm, unsurprised, as if he had known all along I would come back on that exact day. "So, you're home," he said. His voice was low and rough, like wind passing over the mouth of a dry well. I nodded, my throat tightening. I didn't explain much. Losing my job, the breakup, how Saigon swallows people whole, faster than anyone expects. He didn't ask, he just nodded, poured me a glass of cold tea. It tasted faintly sour, probably brewed that morning. That night, after the shop was cleaned up, he finally spoke about the real reason I was there. Outside, the wind off the river was colder than during the day, carrying the faint smell of algae and mud. "Stay here and help me for a while," he said. "I won't ask much of you. There's only one job." I felt a strange sense of relief. One job sounded easy enough. Late night food delivery. One order per night, only one. He spoke slowly, each word dropping onto the table like a small stone. "But you must remember the rules I give you. If you can't remember them, don't do the job." I forced a small smile, thinking it was probably about schedules or money. "Yes, Grandpa, go on." He looked straight at me. The yellow light overhead made his eye sockets look deeper than usual. "Deliver exactly at 10:30 p.m., not 5 minutes early. Not later than 11:30. He paused, took a sip of tea, then continued. "If it reaches midnight and no one comes out, put the food down and leave immediately. Don't wait, don't turn around." A chill crept up my spine, but I nodded anyway. "Second rule, don't talk to the recipient. If they ask you anything, silence is best. If you absolutely have to answer, say only one word." He set the cup down with a dry clack. "Final rule, never step past the threshold of their house. No matter what they offer, food, drink, a place to rest, you do not go inside." I swallowed. "That's all?" I asked. He stared at me longer than before, his expression unreadable. "Remember it well. The pay is 15 million a month. 15 million, one delivery per night." I didn't ask any more questions. Sometimes, when people need money badly enough, they stop asking why. The delivery address was already written on a yellowed slip of paper. Hamlet 114. Riverside Road, Hung Hua, recipient, Tran Tien. On the first night, I left the shop at 10:15. There was no moon. The Riverside village road was pitch black, my motorbike headlight sweeping across potholes and broken pavement. The wind along the river was colder than I expected, carrying a faint fishy smell, like fish left too long in a bamboo basket. As I approached Hamlet 114, the atmosphere changed. No crickets, no frogs, just the steady sound of the river lapping against the bank, like someone clapping their hands very slowly. The house appeared right at 10:30. An old tiled roof, dark with moss, a wide front yard, cracked earth, and there were 3 ancient kapok trees. Their trunks were so thick 2 people couldn't wrap their arms around them. Their canopies covered the entire yard, making the air beneath unnaturally dark. I parked my bike. My heart started beating faster. The food container in my hand was still warm. The scent of caramelized pork drifting up, but mixed with it was something else. Damp, moldy, like wet fabric left untouched for days. I placed the food on the old stone table in the middle of the yard. Exactly as instructed, the front door opened slightly. Inside was pitch black. A figure stood there, tall, thin, one shoulder lower than the other. I couldn't see the face. My voice slipped out before I could stop it. I realized too late I'd broken the rule. No answer. Instead, a cold sensation ran straight down my spine, as if someone had just stood very close behind me. The door closed slowly. The wind from the river picked up, rustling the kapok leaves. It sounded like whispering. I turned my bike around and left immediately, not daring to look back. Only when I was almost back at the shop did I stop. I opened the food container. There was no food inside. Only neatly stacked Joss paper money and a small piece of paper. Written in smudged black ink, my full date of birth. That night, I couldn't sleep. And I had no idea that was only the first delivery. After that first night, I began to understand why my grandfather had looked at me as if he already knew how this would end. I didn't tell him about the slip of paper with my birth date on it. Not because I was hiding it, but because every time I tried to speak, my throat went dry, as if something were squeezing it from the inside. The next morning, I woke up very late, not because I slept well, but because I barely slept at all. All night long, the sound of kapok leaves rustling echoed in my head, mixed with the steady slap of water against the riverbank. The damp, moldy smell still lingered in my nose, even though I had showered for a long time. My grandfather had been up since early morning, sitting behind the kitchen, sorting vegetables. Everything looked painfully normal. "Last night go okay?" he asked in an even tone, without looking up. I hesitated for a few seconds. "Yes, it was fine." He nodded, as if that answer was exactly what he expected. All day, I helped him cook and carry dishes. Every time I ladled out sour fish soup, the smell of tamarind and fresh fish made my stomach churn. I kept thinking of the river's stench from the night before. By late afternoon, gray clouds gathered again. The wind picked up earlier than usual. Around 9 in the evening, he placed the food container on the table. White rice, braised pork, sour fish soup. "Remember the time?" I nodded. This time, my hands were icy cold, even though the air wasn't. On the road, the distance felt longer than the night before. My headlight swept across the nipa palms along the river, casting long shadows that stretched, shrank, and seemed to crawl alongside me. The wind carried a heavier river smell, strong and fishy, like clothes soaked by rain before they had a chance to dry. When I was still a few dozen meters away from the house at Hamlet 114, I saw someone standing by the roadside. A man wearing an old safety jacket, its orange color badly faded, his pant legs soaked up to the knees. In his hand was a flashlight, its beam weak and trembling. I meant to ride past him, but he raised his hand, signaling me to stop. I braked hard, my heart pounded. You delivering food?" His voice was hoarse, as if he'd just swallowed river water. His eyes were fixed on me. I nodded, not daring to say much. He stepped closer. I caught a strong smell of fresh mud, thick and suffocating, rising from his clothes. "Don't stay there too long," he said, his back slightly hunched, shoulders trembling. "Once you're done, leave immediately. Don't trust anyone." A chill shot up my spine. "Yes, sir. You are?" He looked at me. In his eyes flickered something deep and sorrowful. "People who drown," he said quietly, "tend to worry too much about others." With that, he turned and walked down toward the river. After just a few steps, his figure melted into the darkness. I stood frozen, not daring to follow, not daring to look at the water. I reached the house at exactly 10:30. The 3 kapok trees still stood there, silent and unmoving, but this time, the ground beneath them was soaked, as if water had recently flooded the yard. I placed the food container on the stone table. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. The door opened wider than the night before. I could see the figure inside more clearly. An elderly face, ash-gray skin, sunken eyes. His lips moved slowly. "Come in and have some water," he rasped, dragging out the words, as if liquid sloshed in his throat. I stepped back, remembering my grandfather's warning. "No, thank you." My voice caught in my throat. My heart hammered. A cold gust rose from the river, raising goosebumps along my arms. I felt as if someone was standing directly behind me, breathing against my neck. "It's late, stay here." The voice dropped to a whisper, so close it felt like it was brushing my ear. The shadow leaned forward. I didn't wait another second. I turned the bike, started the engine, and took off. As I rode away, I clearly heard something dragging across the ground behind me, accompanied by the sound of dripping water. Back at the shop, I slammed the door shut and collapsed onto the floor. When I opened the food container, there was more than just paper money this time. At the bottom lay a long, wet lock of hair, tangled around a blue plastic string. I recognized it instantly. That string looked exactly like the necklace cord I once bought for Lan. I gagged right there on the floor. The stench was overwhelming. That night, I dreamed I was standing on Hung Hua Bridge. It was raining. Lan sat behind me on the bike, holding me tightly, her wet hair clinging to my back. I heard her whisper right beside my ear. "Slow down." A long skid. The wheel lost control. The sensation of falling, cold water rushing into my nose, my mouth. I struggled, but something grabbed my leg and dragged me down, hard. I jolted awake, my shirt soaked with cold sweat. Outside, the river wind howled. I checked the clock, only 3 in the morning. And then I realized, on my wrist, somehow, a bluish-purple mark had appeared, like the imprint of a hand gripping tightly. The third night was waiting for me, and I was starting to fear that I might no longer have the courage to turn back. After the second night, I began avoiding my own reflection, not because I was afraid of seeing something strange, but because every time I looked into the mirror, I felt as if the eyes staring back were not entirely mine. The dark circles under my eyes had deepened. My skin looked pale. The damp, moldy smell clung to me, no matter how often I changed my clothes. My grandfather didn't ask me anything else. He just cooked, cleaned, and when evening came, silently placed the food container on the table. On the third night, I noticed his hand tremble slightly as he slid the container toward me. His fingernails were longer than before, tinged with a dull yellow. "Tonight, be more careful," he said quietly, his eyes avoiding mine. I wanted to ask so many things. About Tran Tien, About the 3 kapok trees. About the man in the safety jacket from the night before. But every question got stuck in my throat. Yes, I replied, my voice hoarse. As I left the shop, I noticed the river had risen higher than usual. The water was dark, reflecting the bridge lights into warped streaks. Like melting faces, the wind blew hard, carrying a stench far stronger than the previous 2 nights. I felt as if I were riding straight into something that had been waiting for me. As I neared Hamlet 114, my headlight flickered a few times, then went out completely. The bike kept moving, but ahead was nothing but thick, swallowing darkness. I slowed down, my heart pounding out of rhythm. In that darkness, I saw the man in the safety jacket again. He stood right by the riverbank, his back turned toward me. This time I could see him more clearly. His skin was pale, his collar was caked with dried mud. One shoulder of his jacket was torn wide open, exposing bruised, purplish flesh. I stopped the bike, even though every instinct screamed at me not to. "Sir," my voice trembled as I gripped the handlebars. He turned very slowly, his eyes locked onto mine, deep and cloudy, like the bottom of the river. "Do you know why they need the delivery at exactly that time?" he whispered, his voice bubbling like water simmering in his throat. I shook my head. "Because at that hour, the yin energy is at its heaviest," he said softly, a trace of pity crossing his face. "The living are easiest to mistake for the dead." A strong gust of wind blew past. I shuddered. "Your grandfather," he continued, "he's not alive anymore." The words struck me like a slap. I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. "Every time you place the food beneath those kapok trees," he went on evenly, "you're slowly extinguishing your own life fire." My head spun. "Tonight is the 3rd time," he said, staring straight at me. "If you do it again, there will be no way back." Before I could ask anything else, he stepped backward, his foot slipped into the wet mud. His body tipped toward the river. He didn't struggle. There was only a soft splash. The water closed over him, smooth and still, as if no one had ever been there. I stood frozen for a few seconds, then twisted the throttle and sped away, as if fleeing something right behind me. The house at Hamlet 114 was brighter than usual tonight. Not from any lights, but from pale moonlight filtering through the kapok canopy. The 3 tree shadows stretched across the yard, converging, looking like 3 figures bowing and whispering together. I stepped into the yard, my legs heavy. The ground beneath my feet was soft and cold, as if it had been soaked for a long time. Before I could place the food container on the stone table, I heard a familiar voice call out from the doorway. "Minh." That voice tightened my chest. I turned. Lan stood at the threshold. Her clothes were drenched, her long hair plastered to her cheeks. Her face was pale, her lips tinged blue, but her eyes were the same ones I had known for years. "Why didn't you answer your phone?" she asked softly, her voice trembling, filled with both reproach and pleading. I stepped back, my heart pounding like it might burst. "Lan, you're alive, right?" She gave me a sad smile. "Do you really think we're alive?" The smile twisted. Water dripped from her hair onto the ground. Memories crashed over me like a flood. The bridge, the rain, 3 people on one motorbike, Lan screaming, the wheel slipping, the river's icy grip, a hand pulling me down. I remembered everything. "Don't deliver anymore." Lan stepped closer, her shape wavering like a reflection on water. "He's holding you here, just like I was held." I looked down at the food container in my hands. They shook so badly I could barely hold it. "Tran Tien isn't evil," she continued, her voice breaking. "He just refuses to leave, because his family died in the river." The 3 kapok trees are 3 graves. But the resentment is too heavy, they need someone to take their place. A cold wind swept through. I heard the sound of flowing water beneath my feet, even though the yard was dry. And your grandfather? Lan lowered her head, her voice fading. He's afraid of being alone, afraid there will be no one left to stay with him. The door behind Lan opened wider. The old figure appeared, ash-gray face, deep-set eyes fixed on me. Stay here, my child, the deep voice echoed, as if rising from the riverbed. I just want you to stay with me. I looked at him, then at Lan, then at the 3 kapok trees swaying in the wind, their leaves brushing together, making a sound like quiet laughter. For the first time, I truly understood where I was standing. I let go. The food container fell to the ground, its lid popping open. Inside, there was no paper money, only black river water spilling out, spreading quickly around my feet. Lan looked at me, her gaze softening. It's time, she whispered, her icy hand closing around mine. Behind me, the river roared, swelling violently, as if something enormous were rising from the darkness. And at that exact moment, I heard another voice, painfully familiar, calling out from the rice shop beneath the bridge. That voice did not belong to the living. And I knew that whether I turned back or not, tonight, someone else would continue receiving an order at 10:30 p.m. I don't know how I left the house at Hamlet 114. The memory of that moment feels shredded, like an old tape chewed to pieces. The only things I remember clearly are the icy grip of Lan's hand around mine, and the sound of the river rising, not loud, but heavy, as if an entire mass of darkness was swelling upward. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the old wooden bed in the back room of the rice shop. The ceiling was stained with smoke. The electric fan rattled softly. Everything looked disturbingly familiar. Outside, it was already morning. Pale sunlight slipped through the crack in the door, stretching silent lines across the tiled floor. I sat up abruptly. My body felt heavy, like it had been submerged in water for a long time. My clothes were dry, but my skin was cold, the kind of cold that seeped into the bones. "You're awake," a familiar voice called from the kitchen, calm and unhurried. I stepped outside. My grandfather was standing by the stove, stirring a pot of braised pork. The smell of coconut water and fish sauce bubbled up, rich and savory. The scene looked exactly like any ordinary morning from the past. But something was wrong. He turned to look at me. His face was still gentle, but his eyes were hollow, as if they were looking straight through me. "Rough night?" he asked evenly. I stared at him. In my mind, the image of him standing in that riverside house, his ash-gray face, his voice echoing up from beneath the water, was still painfully vivid. "Grandpa, do you remember last night?" My voice came out hoarse, my heart racing. He tilted his head slightly, as if confused by the question. "Last night? I just slept," he said. For a split second, something flickered in his eyes. "You worry too much." I stepped back half a pace. The floor beneath my feet felt unnaturally cold, even though the sun was already up. All morning, I watched everything carefully. The shop was busy as usual. Bowls clinked, people laughed and chatted, but I noticed something unsettling. No one looked directly at me for long. Their eyes passed over me, then slid away, as if I were an empty space. At noon, I walked down to the riverbank. The How River was quieter today. I bent down to wash my face. When I looked up, the reflection in the water made my heart skip. My face was pale, my eyes were deeper than before, and most of all, the image didn't ripple when I moved. "That's impossible," I whispered, my throat burning dry. A soft sound came from behind me. I turned around. The man in the safety jacket was standing there. This time, I saw him more clearly than ever. Water dripped steadily from his sleeves to the ground, drop by drop. "You're awake now," he said, his voice low and rough, his eyes no longer hiding their exhaustion. Am I still alive?" The question slipped out, trembling. He looked at me for a long time. The river wind passed between us, carrying the smell of fresh mud and algae. "Do you think the living feel this cold?" His gaze darkened, his shoulders shaking slightly. "Do they look into a mirror and see no breath?" I said nothing. My heartbeat slowed, each thud heavy and dull. "That night, on Hung Hua Bridge," he continued, his voice flat, like reading a report, "the bike skidded. 3 people fell into the river. None of them came back up." I closed my eyes. Lan's face, the black water, the hand dragging me down, it all came rushing back. "Then why am I still here?" I asked, my voice almost pleading. He turned his gaze toward the rice shop. "Because you refused to leave," he said quietly, "and because someone doesn't want you to." That afternoon, I saw Lan standing beneath a kapok tree not far from the shop. This tree was smaller than the 3 at Hamlet 114. But its leaves rustled the same way, whispering. "You remember now, don't you?" she asked gently. Her eyes were sad, but soft. "Why didn't you pull me with you?" I said, my voice catching. Lan shook her head. "Not everyone who dies can leave right away," she said. "Some are held, some hold themselves back." She stepped closer. I could smell the river on her clearly now. But it no longer frightened me. "Your grandfather," Lan said softly, avoiding my eyes. "He died long before us. The rice shop is just an anchor." "An anchor?" I repeated. "An anchor for those who won't let go." She looked at me. "And for the things beneath the river that need something to cling to." Night fell quickly. As darkness covered the river, I knew I had to deliver again. Not because my grandfather told me to, but because I could feel it, like a habit embedded deep inside me. At exactly 10 o'clock, the food container was back on the table. The familiar smell of braised pork, sour soup, but this time, I knew it wasn't meant for the living. "Tonight," my grandfather said, his voice lower than ever, "make sure you finish the job." I picked up the container. My hands no longer shook. On the road, I realized I couldn't hear the motorbike. No engine, no sound. I was just gliding forward, as if floating above the pavement. The streetlights faded. The world around me sank into a pale gray haze. When I reached Hamlet 114, the 3 kapok trees swayed more violently than ever. Beneath them, river water had spilled over, forming a thin layer that reflected a starless sky. I placed the food container down. This time, I didn't turn away. "You're here." My grandfather's voice came from behind me, very close. I turned around. He was standing there, and behind him were rows of soaked figures, standing silently, eyes sunken, lips moving without sound. Lan appeared beside me. She took my hand and squeezed it gently. "This is the last time," she whispered, her gaze steady. The water beneath my feet began to tremble. Not waves, but something shifting underneath. And suddenly, I understood, if tonight I didn't step past the threshold, then tomorrow, someone else would wake up in this rice shop, believing they were still alive. After that night, I could no longer clearly tell day from night. Time began to move for me in a very strange way, like the How River during a windless season. On the surface it looks still, but beneath it are slow, deep undercurrents dragging everything along. I still woke up every morning in the back room of the rice shop. The clatter of bowls and chopsticks, the sound of trucks crossing the bridge, the familiar calls of lottery ticket sellers. But more and more, Those sounds felt like an old recording, looping endlessly, never changing. Once, I tried staying inside the room all day. I sat motionless on the bed, listening. By afternoon, I realized the sun hadn't moved at all. The light stayed fixed in the same place on the tiled floor. I raised my hand in front of my face and waved it gently. Dust didn't stir. The air felt thick and heavy, as if I were submerged underwater. "You see it now?" Lan's voice came from behind me. Very soft, very close. I turned around. She was sitting against the wall, knees drawn up, hair falling over her shoulders. She looked frighteningly calm. "How long have you been here?" I asked, my voice hollow. Lan looked at me, her eyes deep like the river at night. "So long that I no longer remember how many flood tides have waded through." I swallowed hard. "Why didn't you leave first? Why did you wait for me?" She smiled faintly, a smile no longer sad. "Because you always turn back." Her gaze softened. People dragged by river spirits, if they still have attachments, they drift back to the same place on their own. That evening, I didn't take the food container from my grandfather's hands anymore. It was already on the table, as if it had never been placed there. Heat rose faintly from it, but there was no smell. I opened the lid. Inside wasn't food, not paper money either, just a bowl of pitch-black river water, its surface reflecting my face, distorted and pale. "It's time." My grandfather's voice came from behind me, calm, like he was reminding me to turn off the stove. I turned around. He was standing there, but his shadow didn't touch the ground. His legs faded away from the knees down. "What do you still want me to do?" I asked, my voice stiff, fear slowly giving way to exhaustion. He looked at me for a long time. His eyes were no longer kind, nor cruel, just empty. "Stay." His voice dropped lower. "This shop can't stand on its own. It needs someone. Someone, or a soul?" I let out a dry laugh, my throat tightening. There was no answer, only the sound of the river outside, hitting harder and faster, as if urging me on. On the way to Hamlet 114, I met familiar figures again. The man in the safety jacket leaned against the bridge railing, staring down at the water. A woman held a small child in her arms, their clothes soaked. A young man with a swollen, bruised face still clutched a cracked motorcycle helmet. They didn't speak, they just looked at me, all with the same expression, hopeful and starving. "Tonight is different." Lan's voice sounded beside me, her eyes fixed on the river. "Do you hear it?" I listened. Beneath the sound of water was something else, very faint, like a call that had been soaked for too long, stretched and distorted. "They're calling for a new replacement," Lan said quietly. I stopped in front of the house at Hamlet 114. The 3 kapok trees shook violently, leaves falling everywhere even though there was no wind. Beneath them, river water had risen to my ankles, ice cold. The door stood wide open. Inside was no longer dark. A dim, pale green light glowed, like moonlight beneath water. Tran Tien stood in the center of the house. His face no longer looked old, but younger, sharper. But his eyes were bottomless. "Do you understand now?" The voice came without his lips moving, as if it echoed directly inside my head. "Understand what?" I replied, weary, my eyes never leaving him. "Why there must always be a delivery." His shadow moved closer, the floor beneath my feet slick with water. "Because the dead cannot feed one another. They need someone who still believes they are alive." Lan tightened her grip on my hand. Her hand was cold, but steady. "If you continue," she said softly, her eyes resolute, "the loop will never end." I looked around. The soaked figures were gathering in the yard. They stood beneath the 3 kapok trees, heads tilted up, mouths open as if trying to swallow the air. And if you refuse, Tran Tien's voice sank lower. Someone else will take your place. A very long moment passed. I felt every drop of cold water seeping into my skin. Every memory, every delivery, every time I turned back and ran. I'm tired, I said. My voice was hoarse, but firm. The house trembled slightly. Outside, all the figures turned to look at me at once. Their expressions changed, from pleading to rage. The river rose faster, up to my knees, then to my waist. Land pulled me close. Get ready, she whispered, her voice trembling just a little. They won't let you go easily. The water roared now, not the sound of waves, but like the breathing of a massive creature just waking up. And in that moment, I realized, tonight, if no one is willing to let go, then tomorrow morning, the rice shop beneath the bridge will once again have another Minh waking up, believing he has just survived a nightmare. The water had risen to my chest. It was so cold that each heartbeat felt squeezed tight, slow and heavy. The figures beneath the 3 kapok trees were no longer standing still. They began to move forward, one step at a time, water wrapping around their legs without making a sound. Their faces were chalk white, their eyes wide, deep, and empty. Land tightened her grip on my hand. Ice cold, but this time I could feel strength in it. She was here, truly here. Look at me. Her voice trembled just slightly. But it was clear. Don't look at them. I did as she said. In Land's eyes, I saw that rainy night again. The rocking boat, the hard slap of water. And the moment I turned back, hesitating for just a second, long enough for everything to slip away. I didn't save you, she continued, her voice lowering, her gaze locked on mine. I just couldn't let go. I clenched my teeth. The river water now carried a sharp stench, the smell of rotting algae and rusted metal. Then now, I asked, my voice hoarse, what do I have to do? Land took a very deep breath, though I wasn't sure the dead still needed to breathe. Let go of me. I froze. If you keep holding my hand, she said slowly, painfully but firmly, you'll always be dragged back here. But if you let me go, this cycle will end. And what about you? I almost whispered, my throat tightening. Land smiled. For the first time, that smile carried no sadness. I've been here long enough. The figures were very close now. I could hear water flowing through their chests. Hear the whispers tangled in the current. Replacement, their voices merged together. Warped. Replacement. Tran Tien stood directly in front of me. The water couldn't touch him. He looked at me for a long time, then nodded very slowly. It's time. His voice echoed inside my head. No one stays here forever, except those who refuse to leave. I looked at Lan one last time. Memories flashed like shards of broken glass, her laughter, the smell of rain in her hair, the hurried grip of her hand at the riverbank. I'm sorry, I said, my voice shaking violently. Lan gently shook her head. Don't apologize. Her eyes softened, live fully. I let go. At that exact moment, the river water suddenly drained away, as if an invisible gate had been opened. The figures screamed, their cries swallowed by the water. The 3 kapok trees shook violently. Leaves raining down. Lan stepped back, her body slowly dissolving into a pale blue light. Minh, her voice came one last time. Very far away. Don't turn back again. The light went out completely. I collapsed onto the wet ground, coughing violently. No water, no screams, only the smell of fresh mud and a cold dampness clinging to my skin. When I opened my eyes, it was morning. I was lying on the riverbank, not far from the rice shop. The sun was high, its light shining straight into my eyes, burning. but real. I sat up, my heart racing. My hands were muddy, but no longer cold. The rice shop beneath the bridge was still there, but its doors were tightly shut. The old signboard had been taken down. There was no smell of food, no voices calling out. An elderly lottery ticket seller walked past and glanced at me curiously. "You've been lying here since early morning?" Her voice was raspy. "Yes," I replied, still trembling. "That shop, is it closed now?" She sighed. "It's been closed for a long time. The owner died months ago. They say he drowned in the river." I turned sharply to look at the shop. The windows were dark. No one stood inside. And the delivery person?" I asked, my heart pounding. She shook her head. "No, son. Since then, no one's ever seen any late-night deliveries again." I stood up. My legs still trembled slightly, but they held. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. I left that place the same day. I didn't look back. I didn't look down at the river. Months passed. I moved to another city and started a new job. Life slowly returned to a normal rhythm. At night, I still dreamed of water, but I was no longer being pulled under. In those dreams, I only stood on the shore, watching the river flow quietly by. Once, while cleaning my room, I found an old phone. The screen still showed an unsent message. Just one short line. "I'm home." I don't remember when I typed it. I turned the phone off, put it into a drawer, and this time, I didn't turn back. But if one night, you happen to pass an old rice shop beneath a bridge, see a light turn on very late, and catch the faint smell of river water in the air, remember this well. Some places exist only as long as someone still believes they haven't left. This story ends here. Before it truly ends, Shadows in the Night would like to remind you that everything you have just heard is entirely fictional and intended for entertainment purposes only. If you found the story haunting and compelling, don't forget to like and subscribe to Shadows in the Night to continue accompanying us through sleepless nights. Thank you for listening, and good night.